Mulibwanji, welcome to another special one session on the Talk with the Nation and the M&J podcast collabo. And today I'm going to have Mr. Jere Tipwanji on the platform. We're going to try to talk about the very intricate topic to deal with looking good versus being good. Now, remember, we are located in Cairo Road, town Lusaka, opposite the main post office in a shopping complex called Limbi Shopping Complex, shop number W4. This is where you'll find us operating, selling phones. If you want to buy a phone, pouch, protector, everything, come to our store and you'll find it. Mr. Jere, welcome on the platform. This year, 2025, this is the first time officially we are having a documented conversation. How do you feel?
I feel excited. I'm very excited, firstly, for the fact that we are having an episode short on the M&J podcast, something that a lot of people have been dying to listen to. Because one thing that I realized was everybody kept asking, when exactly are we dropping another episode? When exactly are we dropping another episode? What's happened? Has it died? Is it forever gone? Or are we going to have another episode coming soon? And finally, we're here. But not only that, we have two platforms that have been established by you. Congratulations, by the way, Mr. Malomo. Firstly, for the Evocation podcast that you had established in the latter part of 2024, as well as the beginning of 2025. There is Talk with the Nation that's been established. It's going to be basically the seventh episode, if I'm not mistaken, the sixth episode on the platform. And I understand the guests that have been there have, with great honor, there's been Mr. Mumba, there's been Mr. Sambo, there's been Mr. Malomo, there's been Mr. Mwale, and finally there's of course me. So congratulations on these.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jere. I really I'm humbled by your noticing of the efforts. But yeah, we thank you for that. And it's very exciting for me to actually dive into this topic because I think we've been prepping for this conversation for the longest time. Now, I just want to dive straight into the topic that we're discussing today, which will start with a short story of how we met. If I can run through, like, the first time I ever was introduced to the character Jere.
Yeah.
Was
wait. Before. Sorry, sir.
So my first time ever that I recollect meeting the character Jere was at Fairview Lodge, and I remember I was getting to be settled into this new relationship that I was in with this girl. So it was a big deal for me to bring a girl into the world that I happened to the world of dance that I liked. And it was, I think, a fifth attendance of our class, her attending. And then there was this character who came in that almost everybody was talking about because of how he spoke. So, and the first person that gave me feedback on how you spoke, before I get into what you were doing, was my girlfriend by then, which, have you seen that guy? His name is Jere. And I'm like, what do you mean, Jere? Like, no, it's just the way he speaks. I think he's foreign. He's from America or something. His accent is spot on. And I'm like, oh, okay. And while we was talking, I think actually you came and asked for her hand in dance, not marriage, of course. And then she had that dance with you and came back and gave me the review, and I was like, oh, okay. And then after that, Agrippa was like excited. Oh, that guy had that I was shorting because if I remember correctly, you were doing this photo shoot with Agrippa, and you had this colored hair going on, which suggested with the vest that you loved for a long time. I think it's a vest that you are wearing on one of your posts, your favorite pictures on Instagram, if I remember correctly. That same look is the first look that I ever interacted with, which made me to think, fuck boy, because that was a word by then. And guy who doesn't care, probably drinks, smokes, that he's done all that. He's been in the realm of exploring. For him to bleach his hair, he's done a lot of things. He probably has a tattoo here or there and is planning to get another tattoo. Until I was introduced to the character Jere, which blew me off. What? Because now I was led to discover that you are a faith-oriented man. By that I mean you're a very strong Christian, which surprised me and led me to be more curious in finding out who's this guy. And then I started finding out that you are actually maybe as or even more than in other ways crazy, more crazy than I am. Before I go, because on and on talking on how then we established our mutual communication to the point where we started comfortably calling ourselves friends, how do you remember that happening?
Well, with regard to the topic that we have at hand, basically, we're talking about looking good versus being good. And so the look that you first interacted with was a look of a fuckboy, right? A guy who basically has sex with multiple women, a guy who's smoked, who's drunk, who's done all the things that a person who's probably in their early 20s and they're at the peak on their prime of their life. I was greeted. First, let me take back to when you sent the message to me. I think it was on the 11th of January 2025. You sent the message to me on two platforms, particularly my WhatsApp and as well as my direct text messages. So I looked and I read through and I was really excited because I was stimulated seeing as the fact that you and I have had a beautiful life together over the past half a decade. We've been friends and best friends in the latter part of it. So I read the topic and I was like, wow, this is great. This is fantastic. And then I saw something that caught my attention. The first thing was Tamba Malomo, aka Mr. Nation, host of the M&J podcast. Caught my eye. I'm like, oh, host of the M&J podcast, not co-host of the M&J podcast, co-host alongside me being co-host. So I thought to myself, what exactly is going on? Has Tamba suddenly
boycotted me?
And this is a stab in the back. This is a Shaka Zulu situation with his brother. I came to the conclusion I should basically ask my brother and ask him, he says, hey, what really is going on? Is he really taking over the M&J podcast as the host, or is this perhaps him being the host of the Evocation podcast, the host of Talk with the Nation? What exactly is happening? So I wanted to bring that question to you first.
Okay, I can easily answer that by you are a guest in a way that I don't want you being a host, being bothered by all the responsibilities that come with being a host. Why? Because I feel you are a perfect character to actually bring this very narrative that I thought we could bring together in this very talk. Because your character, the way if you followed me properly in the way I introduced how we got to know each other, because in my story, you are that character that embodied being good versus looking good. Because you didn't care what other people thought you looked like, and you also didn't care enough for that to actually affect your personality and your stance with Christ. Because I see a lot of young people being bothered by, what society thinks about them, and then they would start conforming in what society, hopes for them to be like as a character. So I thought of you to be, I would comfortably say that I was led by the Spirit to think that you are the perfect guest to actually send the narrative. Not being a host, but a guest who might push the narrative of what that is like in Jere's life. Why you get the confidence to be you in all these fracas of society pushing you to be a certain way. I hope I've answered your question. So in this regard, you automatically, in my thought, become a guest so that you can speak from the perspective of being a guest and a host. You and I understand that the responsibilities that go with being a host involve a lot of things to do with how I'm going to coordinate the conversation. I didn't want to put you in that position, which maybe in another conversation, which you will spot on our platform to say maybe I might be a good character to bring the narrative. You might invite me on our same platform to be a guest on. It's something to do with that.
It brought me back to a book that I had read, a 2nd century before Christ. A philosopher called Dante, he wrote a book called The Inferno. Basically, he gives us a vivid description of what hell looks like. He says at the very bottom of hell is Satan himself, and the ring above it are those that betray. You see, the fundamental basis and foundation of a friendship is trust. And betrayal is basically the inversion of trust. So the only person who could betray is a person who you've trusted. It brings us to the story of the first democratically elected president of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Patrice Lumumba. He won by 2/3 majority against the then Belgium colonizers. But then because the DRC is a big country, it was destabilized by different fractions, different kings and different kingdoms and tribes. And so he called his closest friend, his best friend, Mobutu Sese Seko, as the commander-in-chief of all the armed forces. However, Patrice was against the Americans being involved in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And so the CIA, it is alleged, came in and wanted to topple over Patrice. So they had close ties with Mobutu Sese Seko. And eventually, Mobutu Sese Seko conspired against Patrice, and they called him a traitor. They created the biggest coup that ever happened in Central Africa, and he was shot dead. I said this story is particularly to bring the importance of the most important basis in every friendship, that's trust. If Jere suddenly went and took over the Z nations, it would be an inversion of trust, because I know the blood, sweat, tears that Temba had put into the work of the of the Z nations. And I think God would be against this particular action, because even if Temba was decapitated, both hands and limbs, which God forbid would never happen, I should never go against him. So when I came and I read host M&J podcast, for me, the flags went high. It's like, this is my friend betraying me and stabbing me in the back. For me, I thought this is the end. This is how friendships come apart. But then I'll go back and respond to how I reacted to the first time you and I met, and of course how I met your girlfriend. But first, I'll give you feedback. I'll give you a chance to respond to what I've just said.
Okay, I think I addressed that in the text. If you read further, it further actually brought the respect that I thought I had for you in the opinion of the same topic that we're talking about. That's the reason why I included that section where I was like, okay, I feel you are in the best position to bring this to narrative. And I thought that would be enough to explain the other side, because I also thought of that. And in my way of approaching that was the same clause in which it included the reason as to why you are the guest, because that's what that response is giving in that context of the text itself. So yeah. So I think you are so much into your feelings that you skipped seeing the section in which I actually specifically just went like, oh, you are the best. I thought in my life you have impacted me in a positive way in regards to such a topic that I'm bringing out, that I thought you are the best person to actually sit and talk about this with me in the same regard. Yes, sir.
So thank you so much for clarifying that. And also, I think it was best explained with the conversation that you had with Monty before the show started. Actually, you had a huge altercation, just for our listeners, regarding how sometimes our egos will get in the way, and we're certainly undermined by our friends, people who look down on us, and you put to him that, no, these are two platforms that are being documented. Firstly, there's the Talk with the Nation, then there's the M&J podcast, and of course, these are two different platforms that have two different launch pads. And definitely you cleared that in my mind. So regarding how we first met, for me, I really remember your girlfriend because she was a very light-skinned girl, very attractive girl. I think the one thing that was very attractive to me was the fact that she was foreign as well, and I couldn't get over the fact that she was a foreign girl who was dancing kizomba. I think that I have an obsession with foreign women. Anyway, so I do remember that, and actually have a picture. And when we're making the shorts, I will cut the pictures of Agrippa that were captured on that particular afternoon, that particular evening, with the blonde hair. A backstory is, what most people don't actually know is that I came from a boarding school in high school from 10th to 12th grade. I went to the most ruthless boarding schools in all of the Copperbelt province, because it was a STEM schools, specifically on the Copperbelt. There's two STEM schools, one for boys, that's Chiwala Secondary, and one for girls, the Ndola Girls National Technical High School. So Chiwala Technical High School and Ndola Girls National Technical High School are on the Copperbelt province. So it is famous for riotous behavior. It is famous for bullying. It's famous for the most notorious behavior amongst students. That school shaped the man I am today, because I was affiliated with a group called Scripture Union. Those brothers who prayed. There was Chris. Those brothers who prayed. There was a religious prefect at that particular time who prayed so much that every time in the morning at 3 o'clock they would wake us up. Let's go to the mountain and pray. Let's go to the mountain and pray. And as God would have it, I won a landslide victory. I love to imagine it that way, against the SDA, because I was part of the Protestants. So there's one position called the religious prefect. It's the top 8. The religious prefect has the respect because you're controlling both the SDA group and you're controlling the Protestant group. So everybody consolidates and brings all their spiritual problems to you as a religious prefect. So the head of the SDA was Vincent, a beautiful baritone singer. You know, the funny thing is I beat him to this contest to being the religious prefect. And I won. I don't think he's gotten over that. However, one thing that I realized is that I was suppressing actively my adventurous side. The part where I wanted to explore, I wanted to indulge in perhaps going out and having drinks with friends, meeting beautiful women. There was a part of me that was suppressed because I was constantly spiritual. I was constantly placed on the platform. I was constantly placed on the pedestal. In fact, I have an encounter that happened. 12th grade, friend of mine, Sam Ngoma. I don't know if you know him. He's a teacher at Linda Secondary now. He's the man who I...
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Your previous best friend.
My previous...
I stole Jere from you, bro. Anyway, go on.
Yes. So Sam Ngoma caught me having a phone, and that phone was the only phone that had porn the whole campus. So I was off class, and then I was in the blankets, and then he just up on the blanket on the top bunk, because I was on the top bunk and I had the whole cubicle to myself.
The religious prefect.
You must understand.
Caught with porn. What's going on?
What is going on? Him leaking that information. That information is the equivalent of President Trump leaking the information that he was racist when admitting people to the Trump Tower as tenants. He did not want black people to rent any of his apartments. It's injurious to his career. It's injurious to his position. He could even lose the position of religious prefect if any of that information leaked. So that's how high a pedestal I was standing on. You have this moral superiority that you have to uphold. So when I break free from Chihuahua Secondary, I'm like, to hell with it. Let me do what I want. Let me color my hair blonde. Let me talk to as many women that I want. Let me try and indulge in alcohol. Let me try and indulge in sex. Let me try and do everything that I possibly can. But God will not allow. That's how come you and I met.
Okay, that's very interesting. And that was Talk with the Nation Part 1. Please leave that like, comment, give us feedback, and see you on the next part as we try to dive into Jere and being good and looking good. That was part 1. Check out the part 2. I tell you, it's going to change your life.